Inclusive leadership. In order to be an inclusive leader, there are some steps that you need to take in order to make sure that you're providing the best leadership for students from all across the board, different backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities. And I've found two articles that really have helped me identify what steps an inclusive leader needs to take. The first article is by Angela Webster Smith, and it's about self-reflection, and that is the first step, personal reflection. An inclusive leader needs to know about themselves. They need to know why they do what they do, why they say what they say, what in their past has made them think the way they think. And the first thing that Angela Webster Smith suggested for self-reflection is a pyramid of self-reflection. In this pyramid, it really encourages the inclusive leader to look at their heart and realize what in their heart is causing them to do the things they do, to say the things they say, and how's that affecting their thoughts and their emotions and their attitudes and their words and their actions, their habits, their character. And all of these play together and impact each other. So it's really important that the inclusive leader understands themselves and how their background, how their biases and prejudices are going to impact them as an inclusive leader. In order to reflect, Webster Smith has given some suggestions. One of those is that undergrad students, or really anyone, any inclusive leader, can write a letter to their professor or even to themselves and just think through why it is they do the things they do. Why do they think the things they think? Why do they feel the way they do about certain people? What in their past, the events in their lives, their parents, the way they were brought up, where they were brought up, what events have caused them to think the way they think and do the things they do? Once someone understands that about themselves, they're going to start to pick up on a few things that they might be ashamed of. Some character breakdowns. Maybe it's a prejudice toward a certain race or ethnicity or even a socioeconomic class. And once they've identified that thing that's incorrect, they need to work to get rid of that in their lives so that they can be the best inclusive leader. And the way to do that is to first have a change of heart. They need to know that what they're feeling is wrong and it needs to change. Second, they need to make a commitment to change. And then they need to agree to avoid the distractions that will cause them to go back and think the way they think. I have an example from my life. I grew up in the Deep South where stereotypes about African Americans are false and very prevalent. In my family, it was ingrained in me that African Americans are dangerous and that they don't work hard, all of these lies that I believed. And then when I started to grow up, entering middle school and high school, I started to make friends with African Americans and realized that those stereotypes are false, they're lies. And so I had a change of heart. And then I decided to make a commitment to change and agree to avoid those distractions. That means that I need to walk away whenever my family is making statements I don't believe in. Or better yet, I need to defend African Americans. I need to introduce my family to my African American friends. Those are ways that I made a commitment to change and that I avoid the distractions. Webster Smith also includes some testimony from other teachers about the reflection that they did, and it really made them realize stuff about themselves. There's one teacher who thought that he was very respectful and very loving towards students who didn't speak English, his ESOL students, but as he did some reflection, he realized that while he really loved the children, he really disrespected parents who did not know English. And it was because, as a child, his father had a business where he hired Spanish-speaking workers, and his father absolutely refused to hire anyone who spoke Spanish on the job. His father didn't like people who moved to America and didn't know English. And so as a result, this teacher adopted the same attitude and did not like these parents who didn't speak English. So it's really important for a teacher to reflect so they know that about themselves so they can make changes to not feel that way anymore. So this teacher, for example, had a change of heart and realized that it was wrong to disrespect these parents because they didn't know English. And so he's got to make a commitment to a change and then agree to avoid distractions. Now, second, after personal reflection, I read this article by Black and Simon called Leadership for All Students, Planning for More Inclusive School Practices. And this is where I found the other steps to being a great inclusive leader. The second step is cultural reflection. So once you've done personal reflection, then you need to do cultural reflection. And cultural reflection is just figuring out the culture around you. And how does the culture around you respond to inclusive education? How do the teachers respond to it? Are they for it or are they against it? So as a leader, you need to know about yourself, and then you need to know about the people that you're leading. The third step is to make a plan. You know about yourself, you know about the people you're leading, now you need to make a plan to get inclusive education into the school. The fourth thing you need to do is inspire a shared vision. At this point, you have a plan and you need to get the teachers on board. And so the first step to doing that is getting the teachers to reflect. You want the teachers to reflect on what it is in their life that is causing them to be biased, that's causing them to not treat the students the way they should, not be great inclusive educators. So after you've encouraged teacher reflection, then you need to support teacher learning. And you need to do this by making sure you equip them to feel confident to be inclusive educators. Because if an educator doesn't feel equipped to teach an ESOL student or teach a student from socioeconomic levels that are lower than theirs or teach a student with a learning disability, then they're not going to be sharing your vision. So you need to make sure that you provide professional development opportunities for those teachers to feel equipped to teach an inclusive classroom. And once they feel equipped, then they're going to jump on board with you. And lastly, you need to equip teachers to succeed by providing them with policies that really help them serve those students in their classroom. One example is you can help these teachers by making sure that whenever a new student with a disability moves up into their classroom, into their grade, they're coming up with friends that they knew from the previous grade. When students with disabilities are comfortable in their surroundings, the people around them are comforting, then they're going to succeed. So by making policies to help teachers succeed, you really are going to get them to jump on board with you. And then the next step is our second part, part two. And part two is all about how an inclusive leader can be, how a reading specialist can be an inclusive leader. And they can do that by using the 5 steps that are in the leadership challenge. The first thing they need to do is model the way. How can an inclusive leader, a reading specialist, model the way? Well, first of all, they need to reflect, personal reflection. They need to reflect on themselves, reflect the biases that they have, and how they can eliminate those biases to be the best inclusive leader, to be the best reading specialist. Second, they need to inspire a shared vision. They need to get the teachers that the reading specialists are working with, the classrooms that they're going into, the classrooms where they're pulling students out of, they need to inspire those teachers to know about themselves too and be reflective. Then they need to challenge the process. Reading specialists are going into other teachers' classrooms, and so they need to respectfully reflect on the things in the classroom that are not inclusive and address those issues. Maybe that's not something in the classroom. Maybe that's a policy that the school has set that has set the teacher up to fail. And by challenging the process, by backing up that teacher, by going to the administration and saying, this is the problem that we have and this is what needs to change so that this teacher can have an inclusive classroom, that the students I pull out of that inclusive classroom are able to receive the best inclusive education. And next, reading specialists needs to enable others to act. And they can do this by support teacher learning. They can do this by making sure that teachers are equipped to teach their struggling readers. They can give them tips and support. And also, they can equip teachers and make sure that they have the appropriate policies by fighting for the assistance that the teachers need. And this could be spending extra time in a teacher's classroom or arranging for older students to come and read with younger students. And lastly, they can encourage the heart. And they can encourage the heart by noticing the small wins and just encouraging those teachers and pointing out when those teachers have been successful. And I did research on Michael Fullan whenever I did my leadership project. And he had 6 secrets of change. And they're: love your employees, connect peers with purpose, capacity building prevails, learning is the work, transparency rules, and systems learn. Now these 6 secrets of change fit perfectly into those 5 ways that are in the leadership challenge. And so I kind of want to point that out to you now, how Michael Fullan's 6 secrets of change can really help an inclusive leader. The first one is that whenever inclusive leaders, reading specialists, model the way, they're doing systems learn. Systems learn, which is one of Michael Fullan's ideas, his secrets of change, is that teachers are always learning. You need to model the way by always learning about yourself. The next thing that reading specialists can do is they can inspire a shared vision, and they can do this by establishing a moral purpose. While this isn't one of Fullan's 6 secrets of change, he's all about establishing a moral purpose, and that is our moral purpose should be to equip all students to succeed. When it comes to challenging the process, the 6th secret of change here is connecting peers with purpose. Whenever reading specialists fight for the classroom teachers, getting the policies that they need, then they are connecting with their peers and building those relationships that are going to make change happen. Then we've got enabling others to act. Whenever reading specialists enable others to act, enable those classroom teachers to act, enable the children to succeed, they're doing a great work. And one thing that they're doing, one secret of change that they're doing, is transparency rules. Fullen said that it's so important that teachers and leaders are honest with each other about the things that they're struggling with. So whenever a teacher reflects on themselves, a leader reflects on themselves, and then is very open with that. Tells the classroom teacher the things that they've learned after they have done personal reflection. Capacity building prevails. It comes through whenever teachers are getting the professional development that they need. And that's reading specialists going into the classroom and giving the teacher tips on how to make the best readers that they can. And lastly, learning is the work. That's learning while you're working, and this can happen whenever reading specialists go into the classroom and teach the students and the teachers in the moment, hands-on. And lastly, encourage the heart. Whenever reading specialists are encouraging the teachers, they are loving their employees, they're loving the people that they're serving. And lastly, as I bring this to a close, the challenges of a reading specialist that's a great inclusive leader are vast. The first one is a reading specialist has to know themselves. They have to know what biases and prejudices are going to hold them back from being a great inclusive leader, and then they have to attack those. They have to think through those things that Webster Smith came up with, to have a change of heart, to make a commitment to change and avoid those distractions. And then they've got to also make sure that the teachers that they're working closely with, they have to juggle those biases. That means that they have to be aware, reading specialists have to be aware of the biases of the teachers they're working with, and even encourage those teachers to eliminate those biases. But if those teachers don't eliminate those biases and prejudices in their lives, the reading specialist has to work alongside those and try to do the best for the students despite the classroom teacher. Also, an inclusive leader that's a reading specialist may be working with students that are ESOL students or from different cultures, and this is a challenge because cultures are challenging because we don't always understand them and the best way to do it. So a great inclusive leader that's a reading specialist needs to make sure that they are aware of the cultures and always learning. And also, a reading specialist needs to know the culture of the community around them and be willing to challenge the norm. If something is not inclusive, the reading specialist needs to step up. And finally, an inclusive reading specialist must continually thrive to live by that secret to success in life suggested in the leadership challenge, and that's to stay in love. Stay in love with what you do, and that's, for me, staying in love with the moral purpose of a reading specialist that Michael Fullen suggested. And that moral purpose is to make a difference in the lives of a student, because love's a choice. And these teachers, these reading specialists, have to make the decision that they are going to love what they do, they're going to love their students, and they're going to make a conscious effort to put their students and the other teachers they're working with before themselves. Thank you.